Bionox is motivating wellness. Welcome to Motivating Wellness with Dr. J. I'm Jay Wilkins, your host. I'm the chief founder and formulator for Bionox. And on each episode, we interview somebody who, in their own right, is helping others to motivate wellness, helping them to get to the next level in their health. And that is certainly true of my next guest. I am happy to introduce to you Vaughn Lawrence. Dr. Vaughn is originally from the Kansas City area. In 2000, Vaughn relocated to Las Vegas, where he earned his doctorate of naturopathy from Clayton College of Natural Health. So an alum of Clayton College, as myself from Clayton College of Natural Health, and received training from 3 master herbalists. And isn't it true? There's always mentors involved in helping us to get where we need to go. Vaughn proceeded to work in the Las Vegas area as a health food store manager, educator, practitioner, and consultant. I had the privilege of watching some of your YouTube presentations. You're an excellent presenter. Really enjoyed what you did with a lot of your lab work that you work with. In 2010, Vaughn returned to Kansas City and founded Spirit of Health. Vaughn has also received a certification as a colon hydrotherapist, nutrition response testing practitioner, GAPS diet practitioner, certified dietary supplement specialist, and iridologist through Bernard Jensen's International Institute. And a lot of you might be scratching your head wondering what in the world is all that, but we're going to get to it and we're going to learn. So we're going to look forward to being educated by Dr. Vaughn today. In fact, we first met at International Iridology Congress held by Dr. David Pesek, I believe. And
yes.
You came to the booth. I had presented that weekend, and it was obvious that you did big things in your practice by the conversations that we had. So I'm so happy that you're here with us, Vaughn. So we're going to get right into it. All right?
Great.
You ready?
Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's start with just the basics. You know, naturopathy is something that not a lot of people understand what that means. So maybe you could just give us a little description of what being a naturopath means to you.
Sure. Well, to me, naturopathy, it's traditional medicine. I mean, if you think about, I look at everything from a design perspective, biblical perspective. God designed the earth. He made a garden. It was good. You know, we know some bad things happened with sin and all that, but the reality is that God gave us everything we need. He gave us the plants. He gave us the medicine. He gave us the foods, and we have kind of not focused so much on God lately. We've put all of our trust in man and a man-made medical system and pharmaceutical drugs, and not that they don't have some good diagnostic tools and some different things, but we put too much trust, I feel like, in the hand of man. And so I'm always trying to encourage people to get back to how God designed things. So if you think of naturopathy, just think of the word nature. Like, we're using nature. We're using plants and sunshine and water and herbs, which is all people have ever used throughout all of human history. Things have drastically changed in the last 150 years. And I think some people would say for the better. I don't feel like it's for the better. I think we're regressing. I don't think we're progressing. And I think a lot of people are realizing the shortcomings of the medical industry. And not that a lot of people don't already use natural medicine, but I think it's becoming more and more and more prevalent as people see the shortcomings and oftentimes the dangers of what can happen in the medical industry.
If you think about that term, then holistic approach, and that's something that we use in our jargon, how would you describe that?
Sure. It's looking at, I mean, one very basic concept is that, you know, treating symptoms. You know, the medical industry gives you what? Steroids, painkillers, inhalers. You know, we're just trying to, antihistamines, you know, we're just trying to handle symptoms. Well, if you want to know what's really going on in the human body, you need to take a holistic approach, because the reason people are sick or inflamed or, you know, they're having these issues is because of mold. It's because of Lyme disease. It's because of heavy metals. It's because of chemical toxins, the herbicides and the pesticides. Like, toxicity is a big problem. And that's really why people are sick. And so, unfortunately, the medical system's kind of stuck on just prescribing medications based off of symptomology. And if you actually look at every disease name, in the medical industry. It's all just based off of symptomology, or the name of a person who had that set of symptoms is how most diseases are named. And so we're just trying to dig deeper into, honestly, like why people are really sick. Because if you can get to the root cause and you can clear out the mold, you can clear out the parasites, you can clear out the heavy metals, then people actually get well and they don't just live a miserable life of trying to manage their symptoms. That's what we're shooting for.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm sure, symptoms, obviously, no doubt you do a symptom intake form probably just to kind of get a baseline where people are at. But as you could take 2 individuals or 10 individuals and their symptomology could be very similar. But in your experience, can't the causes be much different from one another?
Oh, yes. Yeah, and I could tell you so many stories, but I just think of one off the top of my head. The gal came in and she had all the classic symptoms of mold, because I see a lot of people with mold. It's an epidemic problem. Doctors think people are crazy when they mention mold. They try to put them on antipsychotics or something, or anxiety meds. It's like, no, there's a real problem here with mold. But this gal had all the classic symptoms of mold, and when I tested her, she showed negative for mold, but extremely high in lead. And so a lot of symptoms can mimic various different types of illness. And so, yeah, you can't always know. And that's where I put so much value in lab testing, because a lot of symptomology can be similar for Lyme disease and mold and heavy metals. And you really want to know what you're dealing with, so you know what to detox out of the body, because people can spend a lot of money and time and resources not doing the right things.
Right, chasing symptoms.
Right.
Absolutely. So we're going to get to the different things that you offer, include your lab testing. We want to understand that. But this, I think, is something that everyone wants to hear about, including myself, because I haven't fully heard the story. I know you post a little bit on your website, but typically with a lot of us that go down this path of naturopathy, it's because we have our own experience using some of these holistic approaches. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey and how that turned out for you?
Oh man, I'd love to take an hour on that. But just to give you a brief thing, yeah, you're right. I mean, we get into this for reasons. And my reason, yes, my reason is because of sickness, but my reason is really because of the Lord. And I share my testimony that I was living in Las Vegas, an extremely sinful lifestyle, doing all the wrong things morally that people do in Las Vegas. And I gave my life to Jesus, and it was dramatic. And when I say dramatic, like I couldn't drink anymore. The places where I'd go in and people were saying swear words literally felt like they were daggers stabbing my skin. And so like the Lord had marked me. And maybe a month after that happened, I literally woke up out of my sleep in the middle of the night, and spirit of health, those words breathed out of my mouth. And I had no idea what that meant. But I went to work at a health food store. I loved it. Like, I was like, wow, like I'm alive. Like I'm learning about herbs. I think this is so cool. I was in the corporate world doing trucking and logistics, right? Like, where did that come from? So yeah, it was quite a story of like transformation, redemption. And I first noticed that I was sick in Las Vegas. And thinking back on it, I actually remembered and I'm not saying this is like the only thing that happened. I can't know for sure, but I remember working at that health food store, and I didn't like going in the cooler in the back because I always felt sick and I felt tired and my nose would run. And I realized now that there was mold in that back room area. And so part of my journey is trying to figure out my own health, detoxing and doing coffee enemas and taking supplements. And I did lab testing on myself, and yes, I have mold, I have heavy metals, so like one thing I think people need to understand, like you go to a healthcare practitioner because they have some knowledge, they have some understanding, they have some clinical experience, but those people aren't perfect. Like we haven't arrived anywhere. I like try to share that. If somebody really thinks that they've like got it all figured out, I don't know how truthful they're being, because the reality is it's like we're trying to figure it out too. And because of our own health struggles, my wife, my children, I had to detox my 2-year-old daughter of mercury toxicity when she was 2 years old. She had 7 times the toxic level of mercury. Now, if I didn't know what I knew and put her down the medical route, who knows where she'd be right now? We could have an autistic child. I don't know. But now she's a happy, healthy 8-year-old, amazing little girl. because I knew enough to test her, find out what was wrong, and detox her. So yeah, myself, I've been through mold, metal issues, chemical toxins. I've had all those toxins. I grew up on junk food. I grew up drinking tap water. I've been exposed to things, and we all have. Our world is toxic. So it's absolutely part of my journey. Is continuing to work on my health, and I feel like what the Lord does is through teaching me, He gives me the knowledge and the resources that then I can pour out and help others with what I'm learning. And I'm sure that's the story of a lot of healthcare practitioners.
For sure. Yeah. And one thing I think that I take away from what you're saying too is that illness is a multifaceted issue, right? It's usually not any, you had mentioned multiple things, your lifestyle, your mold toxicity, there's a various things that creates illness. And a lot of times in the same way, it's not usually any one thing that peels that back either, right? It's usually multifaceted to get back to what you lost. So very, very interesting. So let's dive right into some of the things that you offer there at the Spirit of Health. Let's talk about colon hydrotherapy. So that's something that I think you mentioned even yourself that was helpful probably for you to get healthy. So what is it? How does it work? How does it help?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some people, it's a foreign concept. It sounds totally weird. Like I would never do that, and that's fine. What I tell people about colonics or enemas, because an enema is kind of the same thing. It's just colon hydrotherapy is kind of like I don't know how you describe it. You're just doing gallons of water per se in one session versus just doing a quart or two like in an enema. I like enemas honestly at home because it's affordable, it's easy. What I tell people about enemas is you don't have to do them, but you'll just get better faster. And I've been saying that for years and years and years. You can certainly get well without doing enemas. And if people don't know what an enema is, it's literally just putting water in your colon. So you hear all kinds of weird stuff about it being dangerous and all this stuff. Like, how can putting water in your colon be dangerous? I don't know, but whatever. People have their reasons. But I have seen nothing but positives from people doing colonics and enemas. If you look at Gerson therapy and some of the other things out there, people do multiple coffee enemas a day. And you didn't mention coffee enemas, but I am a fan of coffee enemas just because of what it does for detoxifying the bile and the liver and just stimulating bile flow and the antioxidants it produces, the glutathione that it produces. Yeah, I'm a big fan. And I've gone so far as to, for those who are willing and those who are into it, which certainly isn't everybody, it's pretty mind-boggling what will start coming out of the human body if you start putting parasite herbs in an enema, if you start putting oxygen in an enema. Yeah, I can tell you stories, but things come out of people. And it might sound weird or gross, and it is, but that was inside of you. And now it's out. So now you're going to get better, because when that nasty, old, toxic waste, poisonous stuff in your body that's inside of you killing you or causing degeneration in your body comes out, that's how we start to restore life.
Cool. Yeah, really opening up the exit strategy, aren't we, by getting those toxins out through the colon.
Yeah, it's the main, I was just going to mention too, it's the main detox pathway. And that's the example I give people is you have pipes in your house, but then you have the main sewer line leaving your whole neighborhood. And if the main sewer line breaks, all the houses get backed up. And it's the same in your body. If your colon's clogged up, congested, not working right, it's going to affect your sinuses, your lungs, the whole system backs up. So working on the colon, I think, is crucial.
Absolutely. Now, tell us about this. This sounds pretty intriguing. Nutrition response testing. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
I did that about 10 years ago with Ulan. It's muscle testing.
Okay.
It's kinesiology.
Okay.
So if anybody's done any kind of applied kinesiology or some basic muscle testing, it's just they have a very specific system that they use for testing people using muscle testing in different vials, basically resonant energy. What would be the word? It's like oh, I just drew a blank on the word, but it's like a homeopathic, but it's basically frequencies. That's what I was looking for. It's frequencies in these vials, and you can test people to see if they have. It's a way to test people without labs. Now, I like labs because most people are used to labs. It's scientific. It's on a piece of paper. It's proof to why people are sick, because people are told they're crazy by their doctors, and then they show up mold on their tests, and I'm like, no, you were never crazy. You had mold. The doctor's crazy because he doesn't learn enough to know these things. I think it's really important we continue to educate ourselves. Okay, I shouldn't have said the doctors are crazy. I was joking. You know what I mean? Like they're telling people things because of their lack of understanding. They're telling people things that aren't true, and I think that's unfortunate. But anyway, yeah, it's a way to test people for parasites, for mold, for radioactive elements. I mean, you can test all kinds of things through muscle testing. So that's basically what it is.
Cool. Yeah, I do something similar. I mean, I do some muscle testing, but primarily what I do is through computerized electrodermal screening, which you may be familiar
Yep.
with. It's just another way to basically electronically muscle test through the acupuncture system.
Yep.
But what I like about this approach that you got, which we're going to get into more, is some testing is more subjective, where like with the nutrition response testing is maybe a little more subjective, right? The practitioner is involved and his skill level and whatnot, but it gives you data that you can't get otherwise.
True.
And with all that you do, I'm sure you kind of can then dovetail all the different things that you do and come up with a really good idea of what the people need to work on. So
yeah, I mean, a perfect example of that, Dr. J, is parasites. Now, I don't know if you know something, but I've been doing this for 11 years. I've talked to hundreds of practitioners. Nobody has a good way to test parasites in a lab.
Right.
Stool tests are notoriously inaccurate. And how do you test to see if somebody has a tapeworm or strongyloides or nematodes or whatever? So I really like muscle testing. I mean, I'm working with one of my clients, a 23-year-old girl who worked at a veterinary clinic, and she's sick. She's got acne all over her face. She doesn't know why she's sick, been on Accutane and all these things. I muscle tested her. She's got parasites. It never occurred to her that working in a vet clinic that she could have parasites. She sees it in the animals. Her mind is blown at what's coming out of her body because she has parasites in her body. Her skin's clearing up. She's happy again. Like, hallelujah. Like, it's hard to find out those things. A medical doctor's not going to tell you that. And there's not a really good way to lab test parasites. And it's an epidemic problem.
Right. And you mentioned several things that makes the stool analysis ineffective. And what I've come to appreciate is that, well, if these parasites are in the liver, they're making a home in the pancreas, they're making a home in the gallbladder, you may not see them in the stool. They're hanging out in those glands and organs, right?
Well, because they don't come out alive.
Right.
You have to kill them, and then they come out dead. And then that's when people are like, oh my gosh, and they take pictures and they send it to me. And like, I have a whole folder of parasite pictures. It's gross, but like, it's my world. It's what the Lord called me to. And I want to see people get cleaned out and get healthy.
Hey, documentation beats conversation.
That's right.
So it's good to have those things. All right, cool. So now what about GAPS diet? What is GAPS diet?
Yeah, so gut and psychology syndrome. GAPS, gut and psychology syndrome. So it's Dr. Natasha Campbell worked with a lot of kids, a lot of autistic kids, and realized their guts are a mess, which we know that today. Autism is definitely a gut. Autism's a brain problem, right? So what's affecting the brain? So we know there's a gut-brain connection, so the gut's a huge part of it. There's other things, of course, that can affect the brain, like mold and metals and different things, but her focus is on the gut, and she uses bone broths, chicken broth, different types of broths, getting all the rich nutrients and the minerals from the bones and the healing fats to bring healing to the gut, which can help heal the mind. And so that's really what GAPS is. It's just helping to restore health and the mind through focusing on healing the gut first.
That makes perfect sense.
Join Dr. J next time in episode 2 with Dr. Vaughn Lawrence.